The other day I was thinking about the word minimalist because I always say, even though I share a lot of like organizing and decluttering information, that I am not a minimalist. And I think it's because I just don't really like titles. A title to me assumes that like now I need to live up to this standard of minimalist, and nobody would come into my house and be like, this person is a minimalist. But certainly I follow so many concepts and practices about what minimalism is at its core, which I think is really just that you don't let your stuff control you. And if anything, I am just maybe on a journey to minimalism. I'm sort of on the path to being there. I don't know that I ever will be what somebody considers a minimalist, but certainly I have made so much progress since I sort of started this process and gotten so much better about being intentional about my stuff and not letting stuff control me. And so I thought that today I would share with you some of the best sort of tips and tricks I've learned over the years to help keep my space more clutter-free and or to get my space back to a place of being clutter-free if it has sort of gotten out of control. Okay, number one is to let your space work for you. Now, it is really easy to look around your space and just be like, I don't have enough space. I just don't have enough room. I'm not gonna be able to get organized until I have a bigger house. There's not enough space for all the stuff that I have. And instead, to allow your space to sort of empower you, because it allows you to be a lot more intentional with what's important to have in your space. I've always lived in slightly smaller spaces, definitely not like tiny home living over here at all. Our house is currently 1,100 square feet. It's the biggest house we've ever had. I have 2 small children and my husband and I work from home full time. So we do have to be really intentional about our space. I allow it to empower me to make better choices about the stuff that I have. I think one of the best things about having a smaller space is that you're sort of forced to do that more often, so you get a lot better about it. It kind of allows you to shift from that idea of like bummed out, like, oh, I don't have enough space. Look at other people in their bigger houses and the more space they have and like, ugh, I just wish that I had that. If you're coming at it from a space of feeling shame or feeling upset or whatever, that it's not big enough, it's not what you want, you're never going to succeed with it. So you need to sort of shift it and look at it as a place of sort of self-compassion. This is the space that I have, whether this is the space we chose to have, this is what we can afford, this is whatever it is, and I'm gonna make it work for me. I'm going to be able to choose the things that are most important to fill this space with, and I'm going to get rid of the excess. Which brings me into number 2, which is to ask yourself the question, does that really need to be there? If you walk around your space, I do this probably once a month and I find it all the time. Do you have items in sort of like high real estate areas that you're never really using, or you're only using a couple times a year? So let's look at an example. We're gonna go into the valet drawer that I have in my kitchen, which, by the way, a valet drawer is just a really fancy word for a junk drawer. I learned this from Hoarderly. They're like professional organizers, and they call it a valet drawer instead of a junk drawer because they say that calling it a junk drawer sort of just subconsciously tells you that you can put junk there. So you kind of will fill it with stuff. But by calling it a valet drawer, it sort of has more of a purpose. The purpose is not to collect junk. Anyway, so we're going into my kitchen's valet drawer. So this is our valet drawer, and this is pretty high real estate area, right? It's like a main drawer in our kitchen. Really, nothing should be in here unless it's something that we're using a lot. But things end up just sort of accumulating here, like this ball of twine or string or whatever this is. I don't know why this is here, but I can tell you I'm not using rope every day or every other day or maybe even once a month. I don't even know why this is here. Where this really belongs is downstairs with like our tools and that sort of stuff. So I'm not gonna take up this like important prime real estate. Now I have all this space for something that maybe I use more often. All right, the next one is the 5-second rule. You've probably heard this one before, but it's essentially the idea of if it's gonna take 5 seconds or less, just do it. How often have you let coffee cups collect in the cup holders in your car, or have you like left a plate when you sat down to eat when you were working, you were up in your office and you like left the plate there, or you know, you took your shoes off and they're like right on the floor, you swung your jacket over a chair, right? All of the time. So the trick is to start getting intentional about if it's gonna take less than 5 seconds to complete that task, to complete it. Instead of taking the jacket and throwing it over the chair, the extra 5 seconds to put it on the hook, right? The extra 5 seconds to take the plate, and put it in the sink. And it seems like such an obvious duh sort of thing, but generally our minds don't default to that. We tend to default to just like move on to the next thing. I think it's one of those things that we think will happen like naturally, that we would just like naturally do these things, but we often don't. So it's sort of forcing ourselves to do it. Certainly it becomes more habitual as you are reminding yourself and reminding yourself and reminding yourself, but usually you need to catch yourself. It doesn't matter how many times I've taken coffee cups out of my car. I have to remind myself, okay, you have 2 cups in the cup holders, like it's time to take them out and put them in the trash. All right, next up is to get rid of duplicates. I think that most houses probably have duplicates of many things that we don't need duplicates of. I don't even know how we end up with all the duplicates. Some of it is maybe we just bought the product and it came as 2. Maybe we just ended up with more than we needed. We couldn't find the other one, so we bought another one and now we have 2 of them. The point is there's a lot of things in our life that we have more than one of that we don't really need more than one of. You don't need 2 ladles, right? If I've got 1 ladle, I can do all the ladling I need to do. I don't need to keep that second ladle, but it's weird because we instinctually, even if we're decluttering a drawer and we see the 2 ladles, we're like, well, ladles are purposeful, they're useful items, so why would I get rid of one? Or what if the other one breaks and then I don't have it? But now, up until that point of this like maybe chance that someday you may need to ladle 2 things at once, or your ladle just one day disintegrates in your soup, now you're managing and holding on to 2 ladles and digging through 2 ladles every time you need the potato masher, just because maybe one day you might need 2 ladles. I have found that allowing myself to get rid of duplicates has been super empowering and freeing. Allowing myself to get rid of those extras, that sort of surplus, has been a really great process in my journey of learning to have less. All right, next up is using bins in cabinets. Essentially what you're doing is creating drawers where there are no drawers. Certainly whenever we talk about organizing, you know, there's always that idea that like one more storage bin is not gonna make you more organized. And the truth is it's not. Like just buying more bins randomly because they're at Target and they're super cute and they're on clearance, that's not what's gonna make you more organized. But using really intentional bins can be really helpful to keeping things more clutter-free. And specifically, I find that clear bins in cabinets can be one of the most effective methods of that. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples. Here I have where I keep my Tupperware. Certainly I could just have my Tupperware stacked here, but then what would happen is every time I went in here, I would be digging through them, digging through lids, digging through pieces, trying to find the one I want, or instead I can sort of pull out this entire piece and I can grab the Tupperware pieces that I want. Same with our vitamins and medicine that we keep. Obviously I could just have all the vitamins and medicine in here, but then what's gonna happen when I need something? I'm gonna have to dig through, I'm gonna be pulling everything out, things are gonna get lost behind in the back. There's gonna be like some Advil way in the back there that I don't realize I have, so then I'm gonna go out and buy another Advil because I didn't realize there was one back there. By putting it in a bin, I can pull it out, I can easily see what I want, and I can push it back. I like to think of it essentially, like I said, as the idea of creating a drawer where there was no drawer. All right, my next hack is to start doing weekly walkthroughs. This is something I typically will do every Tuesday morning, where you're just gonna walk through your space and take a few minutes to sort of tackle any of the things that you know don't need to be there. It's really easy for us to kind of just like pass these things in day-to-day life. Just sort of walk by it, you know, because like you don't have time to tend to it right now. I don't have time to get to that right now. So having an intentional time, 10 or 15 minutes once a week, and anything that is out that you see that does not need to be there, get rid of it. I think a lot of this stuff sort of piles up in our day-to-day life because we literally just don't have time always to get to it. I was reading an article the other day where this company, this like food delivery company, did a study on how much free time the average mom had, and they found that on average a mom has 32 minutes of free time a day. The entire day. So it makes sense that, you know, you're not gonna get to everything, and it's really easy to like get down on yourself and be like, why didn't I get to that? Well, you don't have a lot of free time. So it's sort of about sometimes you need to make the time to tend to these things. One thing I always love using as an idea, if you're sort of really feeling overwhelmed getting to decluttering and you feel like you can't really get on it and you don't know where to start, is to do a 10-minute a day declutter. So you're picking a single place in your house. This is not the kitchen. I'm talking about like a drawer, right? Or a side table, and you were setting an alarm for 10 minutes and you're just gonna declutter everything you can in 10 minutes in that space. It's about just making sure you have some intentional time every day or every week that you are tending to the stuff that is bound to get left out. It is not that necessarily that you are so lazy and you just like, you can't get to it and you can't get your life together. You probably just don't have the time. So you need to intentionally have time to get to it. Lots of times if we don't schedule time to do something, it's not gonna happen. All right, my last hack is to remember that just because you have the space doesn't mean you have to use it. The point of having cabinet space, of having drawers, of having whatever, doesn't mean that you have to fill them to the brim. Whenever I work on any decluttering project in my home, the goal is always to have like some free space at the end for the stuff that's bound to come in, for the new stuff that's gonna make its way into my home. So if I am organizing a drawer and I've got dividers or bins or whatever, I want some of them to be empty when I'm done decluttering. So there is sort of always a little bit of space for growth, because then you never sort of feel like you're bursting at the seams. You always feel like you have that room and that flexibility. All right, my friends, that does it. Some of my favorite little clutter-free home hacks. I hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember to be kind to yourself and to others, and I will see you all in the next video.